All right, what a great guest we have. Former VP of Officiating and current NFL rules analyst for Fox Sports, Dean Blandino. Dean, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Happy to be back on my favorite podcast.
Oh, is it really your favorite, or is it your second favorite
It's my second favorite now.
I heard maybe you're doing one. Good Calls with Dean Blandino, huh?
Yeah. We just started. We recorded our first episode on Monday, and it was a lot of fun. It's a new venture for me. It's on iHeartRadio, the iHeartRadio app, and I'm really excited about it. We're going to talk about, obviously, football is going to be a big part of it. Football rules, officiating, those types of things, but we're going to branch out, talk about sports. We're going to talk about maybe some life rules, situations that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. Well, what are the rules pertaining to that situation? And it's a lot of fun. We'll have some pretty cool guests, and I'm excited about it.
That's cool. I really like that idea. I think that's a really cool thing, the life rules thing part of it too, because I mean, we do learn a lot from football. I mean, really growing up, I mean, there's a lot of lessons that people learn that have played football, from watching football, sportsmanship, all kinds of things, and taking those and applying that to life is really, really cool. I like that. I don't want you to short yourself though. I don't know if iHeart's a sponsor, and we'll say iHeart's great, iHeart, but you're available on Apple Podcasts, all the aggregators. I was looking.
Podcasts, anywhere you can get podcasts, we'll be out there, and so I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I searched Dean Blandino. I saw Good Calls with Dean Blandino came up. Gave it a listen. You have a trailer, which is good. It's interesting. It is intriguing enough to make you listen to the first episode. And you guys did really well. I liked it. I mean, it's a cool format. I love what you guys are talking about and how you kind of are taking something and making it transcend different things. There was really cool part, and we kind of talk about it here now, but you had the head scratcher of the week, right? And I know as Lions fans, we could probably submit plenty of.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's where it came from. The head scratcher call. We came from probably the numerous calls that Lions fans have been complaining about for years. But that's the call where everybody kind of is not sure what just happened. Everybody's looking around, scratching their head. And so there was a play in the Panthers-Rams game that got the head scratcher of the week, and it was an interesting situation. But we certainly, I'm not a gambling man, but if I had to bet, I'll say the head scratcher call of the week the Lions will probably lead the league in this category this season.
Well, it's good to be leading the league in something. We're leading in ties as well. I don't know if anybody.
Hey, you're undefeated.
Yeah,
undefeated, right?
First undefeated start to the season with our new head coach.
Right.
It feels good.
That's right.
It was a tough game. I have to say, everything was awesome until really that timeout. I mean, even if they had scored a little before that, but it felt like a good solid win. And the team, like, there was questions about Bevel, the whole idea of a run-first offense, and we're throwing the ball like crazy. Stafford's dicing up the defense there with Hawkinson looking good that first round. It was all just such a great feeling. And then that Lions thing kind of came back once that timeout hit, and boy, that was a head-scratcher in itself. I mean, that was probably maybe not an officiating head-scratcher, but boy, calling that timeout there was well, whatever it was. But let's talk about the NFL this week. There was a number of head scratchers out there this week, and I just kind of want to get your thinking on some of the more controversial plays and calls this week, and where the refs got it right, where maybe they didn't get it as good as they could have. I know we didn't talk about this, but do you mind starting with the Saints game? Because, boy, the fans were reliving. There was some PTSD in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome there, right?
I really, if you're gonna. That's really doubling down. If you're going to mess something up, why not do it on Monday night in New Orleans, the first game back after the NFC Championship game? I mean, why not just don't even give yourself a game? But it's an interesting situation. It's not one that happens very often, so I can understand that rule can get complicated with we're inside of 2 minutes and they reverse the call on the field, so you're going to reset the clock and then run 10. But we're
familiar with the rule.
Yeah, they didn't. Which I know the 10-second runoff rule still. Lions fans get the shakes and the cold sweats when they hear 10-second runoff. I know, and so that rule has been the bane of many people's existence. But it's a complicated deal sometimes, and they just kind of didn't reset the clock and end up costing the Saints a bunch of time. And thankfully, they won the game, and it didn't impact the outcome of it.
Sure. Now, help me with this, because the 10-second runoff, you don't see it happen that often. And now, really, the two most recent times in my memory that I see it, and they stand out, are these two times. And it's both times that the ref were not sure. So they said, we're going to stop the clock and make a call. That 10-second runoff really hurts. I mean, it does more damage than I think than what it's trying to fix. Is that something that could get reviewed now, right? I mean, did they need to have it happen again instead of having it happen to Lions? Or
well, I think the rule is in place for a good reason, and I think it's to prevent a team from getting another snap at the end of the game. And we got a little visitor over here.
This is like that CNN guy, right?
Yeah. So it's to prevent the team from getting. So here's the situation it's trying to prevent. There's 8 seconds to go in the game. The offense throws a pass. It's ruled incomplete with 2 seconds on the clock. They're out of timeouts, and it's actually a catch, right? So you reverse it, make it a catch. Well, the offense was never going to get another snap with 2 seconds on the clock. So you run 10 to prevent that from happening. I think there are situations where there's a lot more than 2 seconds on the clock, and so it actually does hurt. But I think the rule, it's a good rule. It's in place to prevent something, really bad from happening. But I think sometimes there are these unintended consequences.
Sure. No, yeah, absolutely. And that's really hard. I get why it's there. I just, in practice, what I've seen is the ref stopping the clock and to look at a call because they didn't get it right. Sure. I can see starting a running clock. And is almost, if the team's throwing it and stopping it, that's fine. I get the 10-second runoff. But if the refs are stopping it, that's nobody's fault. And just start a running clock at that point when it's over and move from there. Anyway, I'd probably break something else if I got a hold of the rule book. So it's okay. I know that's always the problem, right? So what else did we see in the NFL? Of course, we had the Saints one that was really interesting. Anything else that was particularly controversial or that maybe people?
I don't think it was obviously the first regular season week with pass interference at reviewable. So we had 2 calls overturned. We had the Jets Buffalo game where we actually had a touchdown taken back because of offensive pass interference. Okay, I'll come get up in a little bit. So. 1 second. And my son is wearing his Jets green. So that call was really something. But it was a touchdown, which is automatically reviewed. And now the replay official who's looking at all reviewable aspects, they have to look at pass interference as well. And they ruled that the Jets were blocking downfield before the ball was caught and created that foul. And then you had the Tampa 49er game where there was no call on the field. Mike Evans and Richard Sherman going up for a pass. And they ended up creating a foul for pass interference on Sherman in replay. So that's a pretty big deal when you talk about the first time that a foul like that has been added in replay.
And that was one of the controversial pieces that I was thinking is if the standard is so high that none of these are actually going to happen in replay, the rule now is just more frustrating, right? It's now just an opportunity to lose a timeout and a challenge, right?
It is because you have the standard, right, is the Saints Rams. That's the standard. We want to prevent that from happening again, but not every play is as obvious as that. Right. So there are going to be a lot of plays that are less obvious, and now we're going to be kind of analyzing and picking apart these less obvious plays, and then that is going to be frustrating at times.
Yeah, it's the march of technology, right? And at some point, do you ever see the Jetsons world becoming football where it's all automated and AI and guys pulling joysticks? I mean, we have Madden.
I don't know. I never say never, but I can't imagine a world where human beings aren't involved in officiating these games. I think that's so important in terms of just managing what's happening on the field and communicating, keeping things under control. I think technology is going to get to a point where we're doing more things in replay, and whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I think we got to keep it. We got to keep it to we got to keep it limited.
Right.
But I don't know if the Jetsons. I don't know if we'll see that. At least not in our lifetime.
And Rosie isn't going to see the field. Okay. Well,
no,
that's too bad.
Not yet.
All right, that's fine. All right. Well, with the Lions game, let's talk about that. That was an interesting game, boy. You want to talk about? So I thought this in the Saints game, and I actually tweeted it. It was like, wow, games like this are really exciting when your team isn't the one on the field, right? And if I could remove myself from it, the Lions game was actually really fun football to watch, even though it ended in a tie.
It was, and it was really the tale of. I thought the Lions. You have Arizona with this, this new offense that's supposed to be secretive, and Kyler Murray, and they're going to unveil this. And the Lions really, for 3 quarters, were. I mean, they didn't do anything on offense. I think the Lions were controlling the game. And then, the fourth quarter and the Cardinals started to move the ball. And obviously the Lions had a chance to win the game. You have the timeout situation. It's easy to second guess in those situations. If they had thrown the incomplete pass and Matt had called the timeout and then they convert after the timeout, we're not talking about it. So it ends up being that decision's a no-win decision unless you make the play. And that's the deal. But it was exciting, and then it goes to overtime, and both teams went back and forth, and it definitely was a fun game to watch.
Isn't Matt Prater amazing? I mean, this guy is like 146 years old, and he's just booting that ball like crazy.
Unbelievable that he's still. You look at those guys and those kickers. Other than really Tom Brady, kickers are the other guys that can play into their 40s and be successful, and he's one of them. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. So let me ask you this a little bit something about the game. I like this. I'm not complaining. The players were allowed to play throughout the course of the game. There was a lot of close-handed combat between the wide receivers and corners, and it was good. It was good to let them and see them play. I enjoyed that, and it's like this is being very consistently called. I like that. That's great football to me. That feels a lot more like the football that I used to play back in the day. But there was the Colin Trey Flowers, the face mask, and that felt really, really ticky-tacky. And that one, again, was pivotal at a really important time as a third down, I believe, that gave him an automatic first down. When you see a shift like that, right? And this is something that's difficult because as a fan, again, if I take myself out of being a Lions fan, I'm watching this game, it's really exciting, right? We can see a complete change in the flow of the game and the momentum and who's really in charge after being dominated, right? You can see, there's a great story there. But and as a fan, you're watching it, you're like, oh my God, the wheels are coming. As a Lions fan especially, you're like, oh, here go the wheels again, right? You're just watching this meltdown happen for the umpteenth time. But as an official, because look, they have to enjoy football too, right? I mean, I can't imagine the officials hate their job. And when you see something like that, it seems like it'd be hard not to get caught up in the emotion of it, even just as like when I was watching the Saints game and thinking what a great game it was. And I had no horse in the race, right? It was just really fun to watch. Do they sometimes get caught up in that momentum? Do you think that ever kind of affects how they're making their calls, how they're addressing some of these things in the game? Or, I know they're professionals, right? But I'm maybe I'm the dog in Up, right? The squirrel kind of a thing, and I whatever. I get distracted at work too. I can't imagine that they don't. But what do you think? Where you're at?
It's hard to sit here and say that human nature isn't going to kick in at some point, and that there's it's an exciting game, it's emotional, and that somehow, some way, that isn't going to factor into what they do. Now we. When I was at the league office, you try to weed those people out, the people that are going to be affected by
the guys with the foam fingers when they come in.
Exactly. and as officials go up through the ranks and they get to major college and they get to the NFL, they get really good at taking the emotion out of it and focusing on what they need to focus. And you'll track things like officials making calls, home and away breakdowns. Do you have an official that is calling significantly more calls for the home team versus the away team? Even the officials that are on the sideline, when they're on the Lions sideline, are they more likely to make a call in favor of the Lions versus the visiting teams or the other team's sideline? So these are things that the league looks at and tries to monitor to make sure that there aren't any outliers and red flags that need to be addressed, because when you're looking at officials, you're looking at their judgment, their physical ability, but also their composure and their ability to block out all the other outside noise and not be impacted by the emotion and the crowd and things like that. To sit here and say it's never a factor, I can't say that, but I know there are controls in place and to hopefully mitigate that.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like the Naked Gun episode where Leslie Nielsen was doing the umping in the baseball game. I feel like that would be me at a football game had I got the job, right? Let's go, come on. I just would get too involved. It's just too much fun. So, all right, well, that's great, man. Anything else? What are we looking for next week? Anything exciting coming on your podcast? I'm sure there is.
Next week, we'll break down week 2. We'll hopefully, I think we're going to have a pretty cool guest. I'll throw that out on social media. But yeah, we'll break down Saturday and Sunday. There was a lot. We didn't really hit a lot of college football this episode because there was so much NFL stuff.
Right.
And so we want to hit on college football and talk about some of the things that are happening, in that game. And so again, and I think we'll probably touch on some other. I was thinking today I was in an elevator and I was thinking of elevator etiquette. So what are the rules around? Because I'm a guy that I kind of like. I like when I'm in the elevator and people are walking toward the elevator. I kind of like when the doors close on them.
Yeah.
Well, how far is it? What's the proper protocol to save them or to let it? When is it legal to let the doors close?
Right. Anytime you can get them closed.
Right. That's how I feel.
I lay on that closed door button.
Or I'll act like I'm hitting the open button, but I'm really.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. So I'll tell you one other thing about elevator etiquette, and you can use it or not. But I saw a study on this, and I now want to try it so bad. If you get on the elevator and you face the back of the elevator in an elevator, people get super, super uncomfortable, like because it's such a breach of protocol, right? I've wanted to try that, and of course the one elevator I get into is at work all the time, and I'm sure the CEO will be in there the time I do it, and then
exactly.
The end of it, right?
Like, weirdo, basically.
That's the way to win friends and influence people. So anyway, no, that something to maybe an experiment. Maybe you could do an experiment, an audio or video experiment, and bring it on the show and see how people react to it, because I think it would be fun. But I'm a jerk, so what do you know?
I am too. When it comes to that stuff.
All right, I'll see you at the elevator then, buddy.
All right.
All right, thank you, Dean Blandino. Check him out. Good Calls with Dean Blandino on all the great podcast aggregators, iHeartRadio, everything else. Dean, thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Chris. Thanks.